The stars stretched endlessly across the dark sky, each one glowing like a distant lantern in the void. Among them sailed a human warship, battered from battle and carrying scars of fire across its hull. The humans were at war with the Seraphin Empire, an alien race proud and strong, known for their elegant ships and merciless tactics. Captain Orcs sat in the command chair, his jaw tight as alarms blared around him. The ship's systems were failing, smoke filled the corridors and sparks leapt from broken panels. His crew shouted warnings, but the truth was clear. The vessel was not going to survive another hit. "We're losing power, Captain," cried one of the officers. Orc's eyes scanned the displays. He knew they were being chased. A Seraphin cruiser loomed behind them, its silver body shimmering like a blade in the night. "Prepare escape pods," Orc ordered. His voice was calm, though his heart was pounding. He knew leadership meant staying steady even when the end seemed near. The crew obeyed, but fate moved faster. A final blast struck the ship, tearing through metal and hurling men and women across the deck. The lights went black, and in the chaos, Orc was thrown from his chair. When he awoke, the ship was dead and silence surrounded him. He staggered to his feet, looked at the wreck, and realized he was the only one left alive. The Seraphin cruiser closed in. Its bright lights cut across the ruins of the human ship, scanning for survivors. Orc grabbed a damaged escape pod and launched himself into space. Flames wrapped the pod as it pierced through the atmosphere of a nearby planet. The pod crashed into a forest of crystal blue trees, splitting bark and earth until it came to rest in silence. Orc crawled from the wreck, coughing but alive. His uniform was torn, his hands cut, but his spirit remained unbroken. Above him, strange birds with golden wings circled, singing notes that sounded like music. The air was rich with strange scents, and the sky glowed with 3 moons. He had landed on a Seraphin world. Orc knew the danger. If the Seraphin found him, they would kill him instantly. Humans were not welcome here. Yet he also knew he had no choice. He needed shelter, food, and water if he was to survive. For days he hid in the forest, living on strange fruits and drinking from crystal streams. He avoided patrols of Seraphin soldiers, their silver armor gleaming as they searched the land. At night he studied the stars above, wondering if his people would ever know what became of him. Then, one evening, when the moons were high and the forest glowed with soft blue light, he saw her. She was unlike anyone he had ever seen. Tall and graceful, with luminous eyes the color of silver flame, she moved through the forest with a calm strength. Her skin shone faintly under the moonlight, and her long hair flowed like strands of light itself. She carried a staff of crystal, its tip glowing softly, guiding her path. Orc froze, his breath caught in his chest. She was Seraphin. He knew he should flee, but something about her presence held him in place. The woman turned suddenly, her sharp gaze landing on him. Orc stepped from the shadows, his hands raised to show he meant no harm. "I am not your enemy," he said firmly, though his voice trembled with exhaustion. The woman studied him in silence. For a moment, Orc expected her to call for guards or strike him down with her staff, but instead she tilted her head, curious. "You are human," she said softly. Her voice was melodic, filled with both strength and wonder. "How are you alive on this world?" "My ship was destroyed," Orc answered honestly. "I crashed here. I have no weapon, no army, no war. Only survival." The woman lowered her staff slightly, though her eyes never left his. "If my people find you, you will die," she warned. "I know," Orc replied. He met her gaze with steady eyes. "But I do not wish to fight. I only wish to live." There was silence between them, heavy yet strangely peaceful. Finally, the woman nodded. "Follow me. But speak of this to no one." Orc hesitated. Trusting a Seraphin seemed madness, but he had no choice. He followed her through winding paths until they reached a hidden sanctuary, a garden blooming with glowing flowers and a quiet stream. "My name is Lysera," she said, placing her staff against a stone. "I am not like the others. I wish to learn, not to destroy. That is why I saved you." Orc studied her, surprised. "Saved me?" Lysera's lips curved in a faint smile. "The patrols were searching for you. I told them I found nothing. Now you live because of my words." Orc's heart filled with gratitude. "Then I owe you my life." From that night forward, their bond began to grow. Orc shared stories of Earth, of blue oceans, green fields, and skies filled with birds. Lysera listened with wide eyes, fascinated by the human world so unlike her own. In turn, she spoke of the Seraphim, their proud history, their endless hunger for perfection, and the burdens of being royal. For Lysera was not just any Seraphim. She was the daughter of Queen Zelira, ruler of the Empire and sworn enemy of humanity. Yet she was different from her mother. Where the queen saw enemies, Lysera saw possibilities. Where others saw walls, she dreamed of bridges. Days turned into weeks, and the hidden garden became their world. Arik repaired small tools from the wreck, showing Lysera the simple ingenuity of humans. She, in return, taught him about Seraphim arts and the harmony of nature on her world. At first, their conversations were cautious. But slowly, laughter began to fill the nights. Arik found himself admiring her wisdom, her kindness, and her courage. Lysera, in turn, saw in him a spirit unlike any she had known. A human who did not bow to despair, who stood even when the stars themselves seemed against him. One night, as the moons shone bright, Arik looked at Lysera and realized the truth he had long denied. He was no longer just surviving. He was living, and it was because of her, but both knew the danger. Their bond was forbidden. If the queen ever discovered their secret, punishment would be swift. Yet despite the shadow of war and the threat of death, neither could let go of the other. The forest, once a place of fear, became a sanctuary of hope. Two souls from warring worlds had met, and against all odds a story had begun. And deep within the stars the future waited. The forest remained their secret. For months Arik and Lysera met in the hidden garden, sharing stories, learning from each other, and building a bond that neither had expected. What began as a cautious friendship slowly deepened into something far more powerful. In the silence of the glowing trees where no soldier dared to walk, a forbidden love grew between a human soldier and a Seraphim princess. But love, even when hidden, does not remain silent forever. Seasons passed on the Seraphim world. The three moons shifted, the skies changed colors, and the forest bloomed with new life. During this time, Lysera carried a secret she dared not speak aloud. Her heart carried both joy and fear, for she knew her life was about to change. One night she stood before Arik in the garden. Her silver eyes shimmered with both hope and worry. "Arik," she said softly, her hands resting gently against her stomach. "There is something I must tell you." Arik looked at her, sensing the weight in her voice. "What is it, Lysera?" She took a deep breath, her voice trembling. "I am carrying a child. Our child." The words struck him like a storm, and yet as they settled in his heart, they filled him with a warmth he had never felt before. 1,000 thoughts rushed through his mind, the war, the danger, the impossibility of it all, but above all he felt wonder. "A child," he whispered, almost in disbelief. Then he reached forward, taking her hands in his. "Our child," Lysera's eyes softened. "Yes, but we must be careful. If my mother learns of this, if the council learns, they will see it as a disgrace. They may try to take the child from me. They may try to—" She stopped, unable to finish the thought. Arik tightened his grip. "Then we will protect our child, no matter what." From that night onward, their love was no longer just about each other. It was about the life they had created together, the life that carried both human resilience and Seraphim grace. Months later, under the silver glow of the moons, their daughter was born. She had soft hair dark as the night sky, and luminous eyes that shone faintly like her mother's. Her tiny hands grasped at the air with strength beyond her size, and her first cry echoed through the hidden garden like a promise. Lysera held her close, tears streaming down her face. Arik, kneeling beside her, felt his chest swell with pride and awe. "What shall we call her?" he asked. Lysera smiled through her tears. "Soraya. It means light that bridges in the old Seraphim tongue." "Soraya," Arik repeated, his voice steady. "A name worthy of both worlds." From that moment, Soraya became the center of their lives. Lysera raised her in secrecy within the quiet corners of the royal estate, far from the eyes of the court. She told her daughter stories of stars and music, of Seraphim history and the beauty of their world. When Arik managed to visit, hidden under the cover of night, he spoke to Soraya of Earth, the oceans that stretched forever, the winds that carried scents of salt and pine, and the skies where birds flew freely. He carved her small toys from broken scraps of his wrecked pod and sang to her the lullabies of his people. Soraya grew quickly, her spirit bright and curious. She laughed easily, questioned everything, and carried an energy that warmed every place she touched. Her silver eyes reflected her mother's heritage, but her determination, her boldness, and her refusal to fear the unknown came from her father. Years passed quietly, but secrets are fragile things. By the time Soraya reached her 7th year, she was no longer content to live in the shadows of secrecy. She asked questions that Lysera struggled to answer. "Mother," Soraya said one evening as they watched the moons rise, "why do the other children have fathers but I do not? Where is mine?" Lysera hesitated. Her heart ached, for she had wanted to protect Soraya from the truth as long as possible. Yet Soraya's eyes searched hers with innocence and trust. "Your father," Lysera whispered, "is human." Soraya blinked, surprised but not afraid. "Human? The ones we are told are enemies?" "Yes," Lysera admitted, her voice soft. "But not all humans are our enemies. Your father is brave and kind. He is the reason you live, the reason you shine."
"His name is Arik." Soraya's lips curved into a small smile.
"Then I want to meet him." Lysera's heart trembled. "One day, perhaps. But you must be careful. If the others know," but Soraya was stubborn, her spirit strong like her father's. The desire to know her father grew within her, unstoppable. The day of truth came sooner than Lysera had hoped. It was during one of Arik's secret visits. He had slipped through the forest and entered the sanctuary, bringing with him a small carved pendant shaped like a star. He meant it as a gift for Lysera, but when he saw Soraya step into the clearing, her eyes wide with wonder, his breath caught in his chest. She stared at him, as if she already knew. Then she ran forward, her little feet carrying her with unshakable determination. "Father," she cried, throwing her arms around him. Arik froze, stunned by the sound of that word. Then slowly, his arms wrapped around her, holding her tightly as if he had been waiting for this moment all his life. "Yes," he whispered, his voice breaking. "I am your father." Lysera stood nearby, her hands trembling as tears filled her eyes. For all her fears, for all her worries, seeing her daughter and Arik together filled her heart with both joy and dread. For in that moment of happiness, she knew the truth could no longer be hidden, and she was right. Unseen by them, a shadow moved among the trees. A royal attendant, loyal to Queen Zelira, had followed Lysera and discovered the secret she had guarded for years. The attendant's eyes widened in horror at the sight of a Seraphin child embracing a human man. Without a word, he turned and fled toward the palace. The peace of their secret world was about to shatter, but for that brief moment, in the moonlit garden, none of them knew. There was only the sound of Soraya's laughter, the warmth of her father's embrace, and the hope of a future that seemed possible, even if only for a heartbeat. A child of two worlds had finally spoken the word that would change the fate of empires. Father. The palace of Queen Zelira stood like a mountain of silver and crystal. Its towers reached into the skies and its walls shimmered with light drawn from the planet's moons. To the Seraphin, it was not only a home but a symbol of their pride and strength. Within those walls the queen ruled with wisdom, but also with iron will. Her word was law, and her honor was the honor of the empire. On the night Soraya first called Arik father, joy filled the hidden garden. Yet beyond those glowing trees, danger had already taken root. The royal attendant who had followed Lysera wasted no time. He hurried through secret passages and arrived at the palace gates. His heart raced as he was brought before the queen. Kneeling low, he spoke quickly, his words filled with urgency. "My queen," he said, his voice trembling, "I have witnessed something that must not exist. The princess. She hides a human in the forests, and worse, there is a child that calls him father." The queen rose slowly from her throne, her silver crown glinting under the moonlight. For a long moment she was silent. Then her voice, sharp and steady, cut through the air. "A child? From a human?" "Yes, my queen." Her eyes narrowed. For years, whispers of her daughter's strange wanderings had reached her ears, but she had dismissed them as harmless. Now the truth stood before her, heavy and dangerous. A Seraphin princess carrying the blood of a human. It was unthinkable. "Bring me my daughter," Zelira commanded, "and if this human dares show his face, bring him as well." Lysera did not resist when her mother's guards found her. She knew the day she had feared had finally come. Soraya clung to her side, frightened but brave, while Arik stood tall, refusing to show weakness, even as spears of crystal light pointed at him. They were brought into the great throne room, where Queen Zelira sat upon her high seat. Her eyes, cold as steel, fell first on Lysera, then on Arik, and finally on the child. The silence was heavy. No one dared speak until the queen herself broke it. Her voice was low, trembling with both fury and disbelief. "Why does my daughter call you father, human?" The words echoed across the hall. Guards shifted uneasily, nobles whispered, and Soraya clutched Arik's hand tightly. Arik met the queen's gaze without fear. His uniform was torn and worn, his face marked by hardship, yet his eyes held steady fire. "Because she is my daughter," he said simply. "Because love, not war, brought her into this world." The hall gasped at his boldness. Never before had a human spoken so openly in the presence of the queen. Zelira's face hardened. She turned her gaze to Lysera. "Is this true? Have you broken every law of our people? Have you joined yourself to an enemy?" Lysera's voice trembled, but she did not look away. "Yes, mother. I have. I loved him not as a seraphim nor as a human, but as the soul who saved me from the emptiness of war. And Soraya is proof that our worlds can meet, not only in conflict, but in life." The queen rose from her throne, her robes sweeping across the floor like waves of silver flame. She stared at the child, innocent eyes glowing faintly, watching her with curiosity. Soraya, unaware of the full weight of the moment, took a small step forward and spoke. "Grandmother," she said softly, "why are you angry? My father is kind. He tells me stories of the stars. He is not your enemy." The queen's breath caught. For the first time in many years, her heart wavered. She had expected lies, excuses, or silence. She had not expected a child's voice to cut through her rage, but pride, deeply rooted, did not break so easily. "You do not understand, child," Zelira said, her voice stern. "This human belongs to a race that has spilled seraphim blood for generations. He is not fit to stand here, let alone father my bloodline." Arik stepped forward, his hand still holding Soraya's. "If I am unfit, then judge me for my actions, not my species. I did not come here as an invader. I came here because war destroyed my ship. I survived because your daughter saved me. I stayed because love made me part of her world. I stand here not as your enemy, but as the man who will protect this child with his life." His words hung in the air, heavy with truth. Even some of the guards glanced at one another, unsure what to think. Lysera's eyes shone with tears. "Mother, I beg you, look not at the war, but at what stands before you. Soraya is not a curse. She is hope. She is proof that our people and the humans are not bound only to hatred." For the first time, Queen Zelira faltered. She looked at Soraya again. The child's silver eyes reflected innocence, curiosity, and an unbreakable spark of spirit. In those eyes, the queen saw both her daughter's blood and something unfamiliar, a stubborn strength that could only be human. Yet the council would not be silent. That very night, word spread quickly through the palace. Nobles whispered in fear, priests muttered about dishonor, and generals warned of weakness. The next day the council gathered. High lords of the Seraphim stood in a circle, their robes flowing, their faces filled with anger. They demanded action. "This child is an insult to our people," cried one. "The queen must show strength," said another. "If we allow a human to taint the royal line, the empire will never forgive us." Zelira sat in silence as the voices rose around her. Her mind warred within itself. She was queen, bound to the laws and honor of her people. But she was also a mother, and now, a grandmother. Lysera stood in the center of the chamber, Soraya at her side. She spoke with courage. "You call her an insult, yet you cannot deny what she is. She is alive. She is of seraphim blood as much as she is of human blood. You may call her a threat, but I call her our future." Soraya, though only a child, stepped forward. Her small voice carried through the hall. "Why must we always fight? Why can't I be both? Why can't I love my mother and my father without making enemies of either? The hall fell silent. For a child to speak in council was unheard of, yet her words struck deeper than any speech. Even Zalira's hands trembled slightly as she gripped her throne. She saw her people divided, her council filled with rage, and her granddaughter standing with innocent bravery. At last the queen raised her hand, silencing the room. Her voice, though steady, carried weight that all could feel. The human will not be executed. The child will not be taken. I will judge this matter myself. Until then, no harm will come to them. Gasps filled the chamber. Many protested, but none dared defy her command. The queen had spoken. That night, in the quiet of her private chambers, Queen Zalira stood alone by the window. She looked at the stars beyond, her reflection shimmering against the glass. For so long she had believed humans were nothing but enemies, creatures of chaos and destruction. But now, one stood in her halls, unbowed and unbroken, claiming a place in her family. And a child, born of two worlds, called her grandmother with innocent trust. Her heart, once shielded by pride, now carried a question she had never dared ask. Could humanity, the race she had sworn to defeat, truly be more than just enemies? The war was far from over, but within the queen's heart, a battle had already begun. The palace of Queen Zalira was alive with tension. The council of nobles had not forgotten the events of the previous night. Even though the queen had protected Arik and Soraya, whispers of betrayal and weakness grew louder. They believed that any human in the palace was a threat, and that a child of mixed blood was dangerous for the empire. But Zalira had made her decision. Arik would live, and her granddaughter would remain with her mother. Still, she knew the council would continue to pressure her. A leader must balance love and duty, and now the two collided in ways she had never imagined. Lysera moved quietly through the palace halls, holding Soraya's hand. The child's small fingers were warm in hers, full of innocent trust. Soraya's bright eyes scanned every corridor, curious about the grand palace and the humans who were now part of her life. "Mother?" Soraya asked softly. "Will they hurt us?" Lysera crouched to meet her daughter's gaze. "No, my love. The queen will not allow it. We must trust her, even if others do not." Soraya nodded, though her brow furrowed in thought. "I just want everyone to see what I see. That father is kind, that humans can be good." Lysera smiled sadly. "One day they may, but for now you must be patient." In the council chamber, voices rose louder than ever. Generals and nobles demanded action. "This human cannot remain here," one cried. "He is a spy, a threat, and a reminder of our enemies." "Do you wish to weaken the queen's rule?" Another shouted. "If she allows this, the council may lose all respect." "What of our borders? Our honor?" Zalira remained seated upon her throne, silent but listening. She had grown accustomed to their shouting over the years, yet now their words seemed smaller, powerless, compared to what she felt inside. Her gaze drifted to the doors, imagining her daughter and granddaughter waiting quietly beyond. She could see their faces in her mind, hear their soft laughter echoing in the garden. Her voice finally broke the tension, clear and commanding. "This is my decision and mine alone. The human will not be harmed. A child will remain here under my protection, and anyone who challenges this will answer to me." A few council members bowed their heads, wary but silent. Others muttered under their breath, but none dared speak louder. Zalira had drawn the line, and even the strongest could not cross it. Yet peace was fragile. Outside the palace walls, dangers stirred. Rumors of rebellion had reached the outskirts of the kingdom, and a small faction of Seraphin loyalists plotted to remove Arik and the child. They believed that the empire could not survive if humans were allowed into its inner circles. One night, as the moon shone high, Arik walked cautiously through the palace garden, keeping a watchful eye on Soraya as she played near the crystal fountains. Lysera joined him, her hands clasped together, worry clear on her face. "We cannot stay here forever," she whispered. "The council will not stop trying. If they find a chance, they may attempt to kidnap her." Arik placed his hands on her shoulders. "Then we will protect her. I will not let anyone harm my daughter, and I will not let anyone hurt you." Soraya looked up, her eyes wide and trusting. "Father, will you teach me to defend myself? To be strong like you?" Arik smiled, kneeling beside her. Yes, my little star. You will learn everything I know and more. You will be strong, kind, and wise. As days turned into weeks, Arik trained Soraya in secret. He showed her how to move quietly, to watch and listen carefully, and to think quickly in dangerous situations. Lysera observed, amazed at her daughter's determination. Soraya absorbed every lesson, her small body agile and quick, her mind sharp and alert. But training was not only about survival. Arik also taught her about courage, about empathy, and about the strength to face fear without letting it control her. Soraya grew stronger, not just in body but in spirit, and the child's presence began to change the hearts of those around her. Even some members of the palace staff, who had once regarded Arik with suspicion, began to see the kindness in his eyes, the wisdom in his actions, and the love he had for Soraya. Slowly, hearts softened, though tension still lingered. Then one morning a disturbance shattered the calm. Scouts reported movement in the forest beyond the palace walls. Strange lights flickered in the distance, and unusual sounds echoed through the trees. Arik's instincts sharpened immediately. They're coming, he muttered. Something is moving toward us, and it is not friendly. Lysera gathered Soraya close. Stay behind me, Soraya. No matter what happens, I will protect you. Arik drew a small weapon, simple yet effective, and positioned himself near the edge of the garden. The shadows in the forest shifted, and from the darkness emerged not soldiers but machines, ancient and unknown. They moved with precision, their metallic bodies gleaming under the light of the moons. The Seraphim had no record of these machines, and neither did Arik. Yet something about them was familiar, ancient, dangerous, and alive with a strange intelligence. Mother, Soraya whispered, clutching Lysera's hand. Are they going to hurt us? Lysera shook her head, though fear tightened her chest. I don't know, she admitted. We must be ready for anything. The machines approached the palace gates, and the queen was summoned immediately. Zilera arrived at the garden, her presence commanding and unwavering. She looked at Arik, at Lysera, and finally at the child who clung to her mother. Stand behind me, she ordered. No harm will come to them while I am here. The machines paused at the edge of the garden, their sensors scanning, analyzing. For a tense moment, nothing moved. Then one of them emitted a pulse of light, scanning the palace and the humans within. Arik realized instantly that these machines were not merely threats. They were intelligent, aware and capable of deciding whom to attack. He studied their movement, thinking quickly, and slowly began to understand their purpose. They are like the ones from the old legends, he whispered to Lysera. Machines created to protect, but they can also turn against anyone they see as a threat. We need to show them we mean no harm. The queen nodded, understanding. Do what must be done, human. Protect the child and prove your loyalty. Arik stepped forward cautiously, raising his hands not as a threat but in demonstration of peace. The machines paused, sensors flickering, then moved closer, circling around him. He maintained calm, speaking softly, guiding Soraya behind him. It was a test, not of strength but of heart, and in that moment, the child, small, fearless, and filled with courage, stepped forward. We mean no harm, she said clearly, her voice ringing across the garden. I am Soraya. I belong here with my mother and with my father. Do not hurt us. The machines paused, their sensors blinking rapidly. Then, as if recognizing the honesty and spirit in her words, they withdrew slightly, scanning one last time before retreating into the forest. A collective sigh of relief spread through the garden. The threat had passed, at least for now. Queen Zilera looked at Arik and Soraya, her face unreadable. Then slowly, she placed a hand on her daughter's shoulder. You have shown courage, my child, she said softly. And you, human. You have shown strength and wisdom beyond what I expected. Perhaps there is hope yet for our people if we learn from this. Lysera smiled through tears. Soraya hugged her father tightly, and for the first time in weeks the palace felt like a place of safety. Yet deep within the queen, a quiet thought lingered. The choice she had made was not final. The council would not forget. The war with humanity was far from over. And the machines, strange and intelligent, still roamed the outskirts. But in that garden, under the moons of the Seraphim world, a new dawn had begun. Humanity had not only survived but had proven its courage, its spirit, and its ability to face dangers beyond understanding. The queen had made her choice, and for the first time she wondered if love, rather than fear, could truly guide her empire. The palace was quiet that morning, bathed in the soft glow of the triple moons. The events of recent weeks had shaken the Seraphin world, yet for the first time in a long time, hope stirred. Queen Zilira sat in her private chambers, her gaze distant, contemplating the choices that would shape not only her family, but the future of her people. Arik stood nearby, his posture respectful, yet calm. He had learned the palace rules quickly, observing the careful balance of power, the subtle gestures, and the silent expectations. But now more than ever, he realized that survival required more than stealth or cunning. It required trust, courage, and understanding. Soraya ran into the room, her small feet echoing softly on the polished floor. "Grandmother," she said, her silver eyes bright, "the humans want to send a message into the stars. They want to show that they are not enemies. Will you help?" Zilira's eyes softened as she looked at her granddaughter. For years she had ruled with fear, believing that strength alone kept her people safe. But now a child had shown her a different kind of power, the power to inspire, to unite, and to hope. "Perhaps it is time," Zilira said quietly, "to show the galaxy that Seraphin and humans can stand together. Not as enemies, but as allies," Arik nodded. "We have already begun, Your Majesty. Humanity has survived countless challenges, and they are ready to extend peace if only others will accept it." The message they prepared was simple, yet profound. Using a combination of human and Seraphin technology, a powerful beacon was activated, sending a pulse of light and sound across the stars. It was not a signal of war, but of unity. Soraya helped guide the coordinates, her small hand steady as she worked alongside her father. Arik watched her with pride, amazed at how fearless she was. Lysira stood nearby, her eyes filled with love and admiration for both her child and the human who had become her partner in this daring act. Queen Zilira observed quietly, her mind heavy with the weight of leadership. For centuries, her people had feared humans, believing them to be violent and unpredictable. But now she saw a different truth. Humans were strong not because they could destroy, but because they could endure, adapt, and care for one another. When the signal finally launched, light rippled across space, reaching distant planets, ships, and civilizations. It carried a simple message: we are still here. We endure. We will not be enemies unless you choose war. We seek peace, guided by courage and honor. Across the galaxy, alien civilizations paused to listen. Some were skeptical, others curious, but all felt the strength of the message and the spark of hope it carried. Back at the palace, the council remained uneasy. Some argued that allowing a human to live so freely was dangerous. Others admitted reluctantly that the courage of Arik and Soraya could not be denied. Even the most stubborn nobles began to see the child not as a threat, but as a symbol of what could be achieved when fear was replaced with understanding. Queen Zilira addressed her council with authority. "We have faced many threats, but none so great as the fear we hold in our own hearts. Today we choose differently. We will not allow hatred to dictate our future. Humanity has proven its spirit. Let us prove ours in return." The room fell silent. Her words carried power, wisdom, and clarity. Slowly, the council members bowed their heads, understanding that the age of endless fear and war might finally be ending. Life in the palace began to change. Arik was no longer just a visitor. He was a respected figure, a bridge between two worlds. Soraya was no longer hidden. She walked the halls openly, her laughter echoing in the corridors as she learned the ways of both Seraphin and humans. Lysira and Arik continued to teach her, combining the wisdom of both species. She learned diplomacy, strategy, and history, but also creativity, empathy, and the courage to speak her mind. Every lesson strengthened her, making her a symbol of hope for both humans and Seraphin alike. Even the queen found herself softened. Watching her granddaughter grow, seeing Arik's unwavering commitment, she realized that strength was not only in power or authority, it was in love, in courage, and in the willingness to protect and inspire others. Months passed, and the galaxy began to notice the change. Humans, once seen as enemies, began to receive cautious greetings from distant civilizations. The Seraphin, guided by Queen Zilira's leadership, extended hands of friendship instead of fists. In the palace, Soraya stood on a balcony overlooking the glowing forests, her small figure framed by the light of the moons. Arik joined her, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. "Father," she said, her voice steady, Do you think the galaxy will listen to our message? Arik smiled. I believe they will, Soraya. You have already shown them something humans and Seraphim alike can achieve. Courage, honesty, and love. These are things no weapon can destroy. Soraya nodded. I will do my best to show them. Lysera appeared behind them, resting a hand on Arik's arm. Together we will, she said softly. All of us. The Queen watched from a distance, her heart full yet heavy with responsibility. She knew challenges remained. The war with humans might not be fully over and other factions might resist change. But she also knew this, a new path had begun, one led not by fear but by courage and unity. For the first time, she truly understood what it meant to lead with both strength and heart. In the days that followed, ambassadors from distant planets arrived to observe the unusual alliance. Some came in curiosity, others with caution, but all witnessed a simple truth. Humanity, despite being small in number, had a spirit that refused to break. They saw a human father standing beside his Seraphim daughter and realized that there was something special in the human will. A mixture of determination, compassion, and bravery that no force in the galaxy could easily ignore. The Seraphim people, too, began to change. Inspired by Soraya's courage and Arik's actions, many began to question the old prejudices that had kept them at war for centuries. They began to see humans not as invaders but as beings capable of great honor and great kindness. Years later, Soraya grew into a young leader, embodying the strength of both her parents. She was a bridge between two worlds, admired by humans and Seraphim alike. Arik and Lysera continued to guide her, proud of the young woman she had become. Queen Zalira, once a ruler who led with fear, now ruled with hope. She had faced a choice that could have shattered her empire, yet by choosing love, courage, and unity, she had changed the course of history. And in the hearts of the humans who had survived, a message spread across the stars. Humanity is not defined by power or conquest, but by spirit, endurance, and the ability to unite even in the face of impossibility. The light from their message continued to shine across the galaxy, reaching distant planets and civilizations. It was a light of hope, of courage, and of a species that refused to be diminished. And as the moons rose over the Seraphim Palace, Arik looked at Soraya and then at Lysera, and finally at the Queen. For the first time he felt not fear but belonging. He had become part of something larger than himself, a family, a bridge between worlds, and a symbol of hope for all the stars. In the end, the galaxy watched, and they learned something important. Humanity may be small, but it is mighty in ways that no weapon, no empire, and no fear can destroy. The Queen's voice echoed softly in the palace hall as she addressed her people one last time that night. Let this be the dawn of a new era. We have seen courage, honor, and love, and we have learned that even the smallest among us can light the darkest skies. Soraya's eyes sparkled, reflecting the moons above. Arik's hand rested on her shoulder. Lysera stood proudly beside them. Together they looked at the stars, knowing that the future was no longer shaped by hatred or fear, but by hope, courage, and the bonds that connected them all. And so, a new dawn began among the stars. A dawn led by humanity's unbreakable spirit and the promise of a galaxy united in understanding and peace.